Hello everyone and welcome to my channel. My name is Kalica and you're gonna be a spicier person after watching this video. Trash man digs through garbage and gets a nice surprise. My mom lives in a really small town when people get into other people's businesses quite often. My brother and his family live next door to my mom on opposite ends of shared property. Though it is shared land, they do have separate addresses for their homes. They will often share responsibilities and the like. Well, neither household accumulates enough trash each week to justify both of them having a trash service. My mum pays for the pickup and they share a trash can. They rarely even fill the one can between both households. The trash man noticed a piece of junk mail with my brother's name and address on it one day and had a fit, saying that they had to pay for their own trash service. My mum ignored him. They weren't doing anything wrong. Trash man didn't like this. He started going through her trash before dumping it in the truck to make sure there wasn't anything in there with my brother's information on it. My brother's household started burning all junk mail, so no one is the wiser, even if they weren't doing anything wrong. The trash man kept threatening to have their service cancelled. Again, my mum ignored him. He kept digging through the trash and just being a jerk in general. I told her she should have reported him, but she didn't. Fast forward a couple of weeks. My mum has chickens. Something kept killing my mum's chickens. My brother set a trap to catch or kill whatever it was, and they waited. A few days later, the culprit of the chicken killing was caught. It was a skunk. At this point, the skunk was dead and smelled awful. Instead of disposing of the skunk properly, my mum decided to be a jerk. She had my brother put the skunk in the trash can under a bag of trash. It baked in the sun for a couple of days before the trash man came again. Mum stood outside and watched as the smug trash man opened the can to dig through it and gagged from the stench of the dead, recently sprayed skunk. I don't think my mum has ever been so proud of herself. The trash man stopped digging through the trash and stopped making threats after that though. I want to play devil's advocate here, because it says in the text that instead of disposing the skunk properly, she put it in her bin. So I have no idea how these things work, but couldn't the trash man have refused to empty the bin if there was biohazard waste in it? Or can you just chuck dead animals in the bin? I've no idea. Landlord tries to evict us in the middle of winter. Ends up costing her more money. About 5 months after leaving my wife and my best friend had a falling out with his girlfriend, we ended up moving in together in a 1-bedroom basement apartment near downtown. Here is the cast for the story. My best friend Joe, the landlord Carol because she reminds me of my evil stepmother, the fire marshal Bill, health inspector Jenny, our lawyer Jim, and the building inspector Charles. We ended up moving in during the spring of 2007. It was a small apartment and the utilities were included in the rent. We were paying $600 a month. I took the bedroom while Joe slept in the small living room kitchenette on the couch. There were some problems with a couple of items, but it wasn't anything I couldn't fix. Carol didn't mind me putting down new cement for the basement steps or fixing the awning outside of our door so it wouldn't leak. Things were looking good until the fall and winter hit. Every time it rained, the water would come down and flood the basement. I had to invest in a shop vac to suck up the water. When it got cold, the heating ducts were virtually useless, so we had to run the stove to keep warm. This worked out okay until February the next year when Carol got her electric bill. I worked nights and was sleeping when she came down and told Joe that we had to leave because her electric was so high. He tried to explain to her that the heat down here didn't work and we were freezing. She didn't care. Joe wakes me up and tells me this. I was not having it. Joe and I went down to City Hall and went to the Board of Health office. That is where we met Jenny. We explained our situation to her and she set up a time to investigate it with Bill and Charles. About 3 days later, Jenny, Bill and Charles show up at Carol's door and demand to investigate the basement. Carol is pissed. As they all come into our apartment, they start listing all the violations such as inadequate heat, unpadded carpet flooring, no second egress, exit, no access to fuse panels or circuit breakers. Carol started arguing with Joe about this. She didn't want to talk to me because I was white and Joe was black as she was. But Joe is Blackfoot, she is Haitian, and even still, Joe didn't like her. "Why did you call them?" said Carol. "I didn't." "Well then who did?" "I did." "You had no right to do this, we don't have a lease." "Oh no? What do you call this then?" I pulled out the agreement we all signed and showed her that electric was included in the rent. Jenny and Charles looked at it as well and said this does constitute a tenancy at will agreement. She was ordered by the city to repair and bring the basement up to code as long as we were living there. About 2 weeks later, HVAC contractors showed up to start working on putting a separate heating system in for the basement. Also, a county sheriff showed up about another 4 weeks after with letters of eviction for both Joe and I. In Massachusetts, eviction cases go through civil court, but the tenant's lawyer can have the case moved to housing court. Housing court leans more towards the tenant than the landlord. We speak to our lawyer Jim, who believes we can get our security deposit back, but not much else. Joe's looking to move in with his new girlfriend, and I'm planning on taking her old place, which is only around the block from where we live now. In the meantime, while we are still there at her house, she still has to get up to code and we don't have to pay her. We show up to housing court when Jim tells us when our hearing is. Carol does show up with her lawyer. We wait quietly on the other side of the hall while Jim goes to speak to Carol and her attorney. Jim gives her the proposal for her to pay her security deposit back and Jim's fee. She refuses the offer and Jim tells her that we'll need to go to trial then. He comes back and tells Joe and I this, and he says that he will call us when we have to appear. We agree and we all leave. As we're leaving, I see Carol having an argument with the meter maid who's writing her a ticket for not putting money in the meter. Joe and I are laughing so hard as we drive by her. After Joe and I moved out, she settled for the deposit and lawyer's fees. I ended up getting $600 back, but after we left, the inspectors all came back and told her she couldn't rent out the basement anymore. With everything totaled up, she ended up spending over $7,000 in upgrades, another $1,100 in both mine and her attorney's fees plus my $600. She ended up putting the house on the market. No one would buy it. I think to this day it's still up for sale. Any takers? No smoke breaks? You better call Saul, witch. Years ago I worked at a school for students with significant challenges. The school was owned by a for-profit company. The owners made money by taking tax dollars for education and spending as little as possible on educational services. The remainder was their profit. I worked as an aide and bus driver. I had been a teacher in another state, but had no license in the one my girlfriend, now wife, moved to. So I drove a bus and assisted teachers at this for-profit school for profoundly vulnerable children ages 5 to 22. Funny, it paid more than my teaching gig because drivers and aides get paid by the hour. Back then, I smoked a lot, pack a day at least. Back home, I was definitely one of the smoker teachers you'd see pacing out by the flagpole or loading dock. I needed the cigarettes to teach, and I definitely needed them to drive an effing bus full of the profoundly challenged but full-grown delinquents sitting behind me. But the effing place wouldn't let me smoke. They didn't have the staff to cover me. It was unreal. I'd finally get away after 6 hours in this crap, and just as I go to light a much-missed Camel filter, I'd get a radio call saying one of the students took a little crap and was effectively holding the teacher hostage in the timeout area because no one dared intervene. It got to the point where I wouldn't leave the kids even to piss because there was no one to relieve me or prevent them from running down the middle of the street naked. Seriously, happened more than once. It really pissed me off that I couldn't get smoke breaks at this for-profit asylum. Nicotine withdrawal rage is powerful. It unlocked my brain's previously unknown calculated revenge zone. So I started by filing a wage claim and got like $1,400, and then I contacted the Teamsters and started organising. Then boss found out I was organising and fired me. But I ended up going for some professional training and learned it was illegal to fire me for that. So I filed a charge with the NLRB on the last possible day before the 6 months SOL, and they issued a complaint, which they then settled by ordering me back to work with back pay. I skipped professional training for a day, walked back into that crap hole school like Lazarus back to tell them all about it, took a picture of the government poster in the break room announcing to everyone I was ordered back to work because those effers violated our rights as workers, and got mad smoke breaks all day long. Finished the last one, walked into the office, and quit at 4:55. Went back to professional training. Invested the back pay proceeds in a pro-SC lawsuit in the boss's county court, wrongful termination, retaliation for wage claim, and defamation based on a bogus letter sent by boss to all my co-workers claiming I did illegal crap I never did. Litigated the hell out of it. Took boss's deposition, highly recommended form of therapy, putting your ex-boss under oath and making them answer your questions, and got it past their lawyers' best efforts to kill the case. Settled before trial, didn't have the nerve to try it. My badassery has defined limits. Finished professional training, filed class action on behalf of co-workers. Took 2 years, but great settlement. They flew the boss's boss out for that check signing ceremony with the mediator. Sued them again for taking tax dollars fraudulently. A whistleblower case known as a qui tam. They settled, paid the government back, and promptly sold the schools to another, much smaller outfit. The place is still non-union, which sucks, but the kids still get an education instead of what's left after the banks take their cut. Imagine, they might be doing business today had they only let me have 2 or 3 smokes on a regular effing basis. Jerks. Good news is I quit smoking, so no more revenge for me. Got it. Okay, so that's all for r/ProRevenge. I really hope you did enjoy it. As always, if you do want to see more content like this, then please do subscribe. My Twitter, Discord, and Patreon links are in the description, and any support is greatly appreciated. Thank you so much for watching.